Have you ever vanished from people's lives for a while and returned feeling like something inside you is no longer the same? Almost like a part of you died, another part of you awakened, and the world around you suddenly felt too small for the person you're becoming. That shift you felt wasn't random. It was your quantum self breaking out of the old version of you. Today, you'll understand why disappearing for a while is not running away. It's breaking the timeline that was keeping you stuck. When you withdraw, you break the loop of your old self. Most people don't even realize that the life they are living is nothing more than a repeated cycle of the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same behaviors, and the same reactions. Every morning they wake up and the mind immediately loads yesterday's program. The same worries appear, the same insecurities activate, the same people trigger the same responses, and the same habits play out without conscious awareness. This becomes a loop, a mental and emotional pattern that keeps a person stuck in the same version of themselves. It doesn't matter how much they want change. If they keep repeating the same inner world, their outer world can never shift. But something powerful happens when you withdraw, when you intentionally step away from your usual environment, habits, and emotional triggers. You break the cycle. Your brain, which has been firing the same neural pathways for months or years, suddenly pauses. It stops running the automatic programs that keep you trapped. Your nervous system, which is constantly reacting to stress, noise, people, and responsibilities, finally begins to reset. The tension you didn't even notice starts to melt away. The emotions you were suppressing come to the surface and begin to release. Your breathing becomes deeper, your thoughts become slower, and your mind finally remembers what silence feels like. In this silence, something incredible happens. Your thoughts start to separate from the noise of the world. They stop getting tangled in distraction, comparison, fear, and other people's expectations. The mental fog begins to clear, and your mind gains space, real space, to breathe. You start to observe your old patterns instead of being controlled by them. You begin to notice the habits you were repeating on autopilot. You see how you were reacting without thinking. You notice which emotions were coming from old wounds instead of truth. You start understanding yourself in a way you never could while living in the noise. This is why solitude is not loneliness. It is a sacred reset. It is the moment when your identity loosens its grip and you are no longer trapped inside the same version of yourself. You step into a place where you can create new patterns, new thoughts, new energies, and new ways of responding to life. Solitude becomes the bridge between who you have been and who you are becoming. It is the quiet corridor where transformation begins. When you withdraw, even for a short time, you are not running away, you are reorganizing yourself. You are breaking the loop of your old self so something stronger, calmer, and more aligned can emerge. 2. Your frequency resets when you remove yourself from your environment. Your environment is not just the physical space around you, it is the energy field that constantly interacts with your mind, emotions, and identity. The people you talk to, the conversations you overhear, the places you spend time in, the routines you repeat, and even the emotional atmosphere of your surroundings, all of these elements quietly shape your vibration more than you realize. You absorb energy without noticing. You internalize stress without choosing. You pick up emotional tension, negativity, comparison, fear, and expectations simply by existing in the same environment every day. Over time, this creates a vibration that is not truly yours, but a mixture of everything around you. When you remove yourself from that environment, something powerful happens. Your frequency begins to reset. Think of it like stepping out of a noisy room you didn't even realize was loud until you finally walked outside. You suddenly notice how heavy that noise was, how much pressure it was putting on your mind, and how long you had been carrying that weight without awareness. The moment you step away, you feel lighter, not because life changed, but because the environment's influence was finally unplugged. In that space of separation, your emotional system recalibrates. You stop absorbing the energy of the people who drain you. You stop reacting to situations that were constantly triggering you. You stop being programmed by the subconscious influences of your surroundings. Without that constant emotional push and pull, your nervous system settles into a calmer, more natural rhythm. Your breathing slows down, your thoughts become clearer, and your inner voice becomes louder than the noise you were surrounded by. This reset allows your true frequency, the one hidden under stress, expectations, and emotional clutter, to rise again. You begin to feel more aligned with yourself instead of the environment. Your intuition gets sharper. Your inner peace becomes noticeable. You start to realize how much of your behavior was not coming from your authentic self, but from external pressure and constant emotional overstimulation. You see which people lower your vibration, which habits drain your energy, and which environments keep you stuck in your old self. When you return after this reset, people notice you have changed even if you say nothing. Your energy feels different. You respond differently. You don't get pulled into the same emotional traps. You don't carry the same heaviness. You don't vibrate at the same frequency you left with. This is why removing yourself from your environment, even temporarily, can shift your entire life. The world responds to your energy, and when your energy changes, everything around you changes. A reset doesn't require months. Sometimes a few days, a few hours, or even a few intentional moments of separation are enough to elevate your frequency to a level your old environment could never support. And once your frequency rises, you attract experiences, opportunities, and people who match this new vibration. That is how reality begins to rewire itself around you, quietly, naturally, and powerfully, just because you stepped away long enough to remember who you are without the world's interference. 3. You don't come back with the same eyes. You come back with awareness. When you stay in the same routine, surrounded by the same people, responding to the same situations, your mind becomes trapped in a kind of psychological tunnel vision. You stop noticing what's draining you. You stop questioning what's limiting you. You stop seeing what's hurting you. You accept things as they are because you've seen them so many times that your brain labels them as normal, even when they are destroying your peace. Familiarity can blind you more than darkness ever could. But when you step away, when you finally distance yourself from the noise, the pressure, the conversations, the expectations, the emotional clutter, you return with a new pair of eyes, eyes that can finally see the truth without distortion. Awareness is what grows in the space where distraction dies. When you change your environment, even for a short time, the fog begins to lift. The mental noise settles. Your intuition rises to the surface. Suddenly, things you tolerated for years become unacceptable. People you used to chase begin to look different. Patterns you kept repeating become visible. You begin to see what was always there, but you were too close to notice. This new awareness is powerful because it breaks illusions. It breaks emotional attachments that were not healthy. It breaks habits that kept you stuck. It reveals the truth behind situations you thought you understood. You begin to notice how certain environments shrink your energy. You understand how certain conversations lower your vibration. You realize how certain people affect your mood, your confidence, your self-worth. You see how much of your life was being lived automatically rather than intentionally. When awareness rises, you begin noticing your own inner world too. You see the fears you were ignoring, the wounds you never addressed, the insecurities that dictated your decisions, and the thoughts that shaped your reality without your permission. You understand why you kept falling into the same situations, why you attracted certain experiences, and why your life felt like a cycle instead of a path. This awareness is not painful. It is liberating. It gives you back the power you didn't know you lost. And something even deeper happens. You start recognizing possibilities that were invisible before. You see new paths, new choices, new ways of thinking, new ways of responding, new potentials within yourself that were buried under stress and routine. It's like life opens a hidden menu that only appears when your mind is quiet enough to access it. This is the awakening that comes from stepping away. When you come back with awareness, you do not return as the same person. You return with a sharper intuition, a calmer mind, and a clearer vision. You respond differently because you understand differently. You choose differently because you see differently. You no longer run on autopilot. You run on purpose. People around you may not understand what changed, but they will feel it. Your energy becomes more intentional. Your presence becomes more grounded. Your decisions become more aligned with your truth. This is why stepping away is not escaping life. It is returning to life with clarity. Awareness is a kind of spiritual and mental rebirth. It rewrites your relationship with yourself and with the world. And once your eyes open to the truth, you can never unsee it. Your new awareness becomes the foundation of the new reality you're about to create. 4. Solitude reconnects you with your quantum self. There is a version of you that is deeper than the identity you show to the world, deeper than the personality you develop to survive, deeper than the fears, doubts, and insecurities you picked up along the way. Beneath all of that, there exists your quantum self, the pure, unfiltered, infinite consciousness that is connected to possibility, intuition, and the unseen forces that shape your reality. Most people never meet this version of themselves because they are constantly surrounded by noise. Noise from people, noise from social media, noise from responsibilities, noise from their own overthinking. Noise becomes the walls that separate them from the truth of who they really are. Solitude is the moment when these walls finally fall. When you intentionally step away from the world, from the expectations, opinions, and constant pressure, you enter a space where your inner world becomes louder than the outer world. Your thoughts slow down. Your emotions rise to the surface. Your intuition, which was drowned out by distraction, begins to speak clearly. The silence you experience is not empty. It is full of information, full of guidance, full of answers you were too overwhelmed to hear before. This is where you begin reconnecting with your quantum self, the version of you that observes without reacting, understands without fear, and creates without limitation. In solitude, something magical begins to happen inside your mind. You start noticing thought patterns that were controlling you. You start catching emotional triggers before they take over. You start seeing how much of your identity was built from external influence instead of internal truth. Your quantum self begins guiding you back to your real path, the path you were meant to walk before life taught you to shrink yourself to fit into places you had outgrown. In this inward space, you start remembering dreams you abandoned, values you compromised, and strengths you forgot you had. As the noise disappears, your imagination wakes up. You begin to envision new realities for yourself, not based on fear or past experiences, but based on possibility. You begin to feel a sense of alignment, as if your mind, heart, and energy are finally moving in the same direction. This is the quantum field responding to your clarity. The clearer your inner state becomes, the more magnetic your energy becomes. Thoughts in solitude don't just stay thoughts, they become frequencies, and those frequencies begin attracting experiences that match them. This is how quantum manifestation works, not from wishing, but from the mind returning to coherence, alignment, and intention. Solitude also gives you something that the world rarely allows, the chance to feel your emotions fully. When you slow down, unprocessed emotions rise to the surface, pain you buried, regrets you avoided, anger you swallowed, sadness you never admitted. These emotions are not there to harm you, they are there to free you. When you allow them to move through you, Your emotional field becomes clearer. A clear emotional field is a powerful one. It holds energy instead of leaking it. It becomes stable instead of reactive. It becomes grounded instead of chaotic. This emotional clarity is part of reconnecting with your quantum self, because your true self cannot rise through layers of denied emotion. In this silence, you also become aware of the guidance you have been ignoring. Your intuition becomes sharper. You start receiving insights, ideas, and inner signals that feel like they come from a higher intelligence, because they do. This intuitive intelligence is part of your quantum wiring. It is the compass that points you towards the life aligned with your potential, not your past. The quieter your world becomes, the louder this guidance appears. And once you begin trusting it, your entire life starts to shift. When solitude begins to transform you, your energy changes. You walk differently. You think differently. You make decisions from a place of alignment rather than fear. You see the world through the eyes of someone who is not controlled by external circumstances, but aligned with internal truth. You become a creator of your reality instead of a reactor to your environment. This shift is what reconnecting with your quantum self does. It restores your power, your clarity, and your ability to shape your future. Solitude is not isolation. It is recalibration. It is remembering. It is returning to the source of your strength. It is the sacred process of wiping away the dust of the world, so your inner brilliance can finally shine again. And when you come back from this space, you come back as someone the old world cannot influence the same way. You return with a deeper understanding of yourself, a stronger connection to your purpose, and a clearer awareness of the reality you are meant to create. 5. You return with a different identity, and reality responds instantly. Identity is not just who you think you are. It is the vibration you carry, the beliefs you hold, the boundaries you set, the energy you emit, and the expectations you allow into your life. Identity is the blueprint that the universe reads before it responds to you. Most people don't realize that their reality is shaped not by what they want, but by who they are being on the inside. When you withdraw into solitude, reset your mind, detach from the noise, and reconnect with your quantum self, you undergo an internal shift so deep that it begins rewriting your entire identity from the inside out. And when identity changes, everything else must change with it. When you return after a period of deep self-reset, you don't walk back into life as the same person. Your mind is quieter. Your presence is stronger. Your energy is clearer. You no longer react the same way to the things that used to trigger you. You don't fall into the same emotional traps. You don't internalize negativity the way you once did. This new inner stability creates a noticeable difference in your behavior, your decisions, and your energy field. People feel it before they understand it. They sense something is different about you, even if you say nothing. This shift in identity doesn't happen because you forced it. It happens because your internal vibration has realigned. When you elevate your frequency through solitude, clarity, and self-awareness, you start operating from a higher emotional and mental state. This changes the way you speak, the way you think, and the way you show up in the world. Your posture, your tone, your eyes, your presence, all of it shifts. Without trying, you begin radiating confidence instead of insecurity, calm instead of chaos, purpose instead of confusion, boundaries instead of weakness. People respond to this energy immediately because human beings instinctively react to vibration more than words. And the moment people respond differently to you, your entire reality starts shifting. Doors that were closed begin to open. Opportunities that once ignored you begin to appear. Relationships that drained you fall away on their own because they can no longer attach themselves to your new identity. Conversations change, connections change, priorities change, and most importantly, your standards change. You stop accepting things you once tolerated because your new identity refuses to shrink back into smallness. You no longer chase what is beneath your frequency because your energy naturally attracts what is aligned with your new level of consciousness. A powerful transformation also happens inside your decision-making. You start making choices based not on fear, pressure, or desperation, but on clarity, intuition, and self-respect. You don't react impulsively anymore. You respond intentionally. You begin choosing peace over drama, growth over comfort, silence over noise, and alignment over distraction. These new choices reshape your life from the inside out. You stop wasting energy on things that don't serve your evolution. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not meant to understand you. You stop trying to prove your worth because your identity now recognizes it naturally. One of the most profound changes is how you begin to feel about yourself. When you return with a new identity, you carry a deeper sense of self-trust. You trust your judgment. You trust your intuition. You trust your path. You no longer seek validation from the outside because your inner world is now strong enough to validate itself. This inner strength radiates outward and becomes a magnet for new experiences. Life begins aligning with your new identity because the universe always mirrors the energy you hold, not the words you speak. This is why people say, when you change, everything around you changes. It's not a poetic metaphor. It's quantum mechanics. Your identity broadcasts a vibration, and that vibration attracts a matching reality. When solitude transforms your identity, your new energy becomes incompatible with your old life. You return as a new version of yourself, and life has no choice but to reorganize itself around this new frequency. By the time you come back, you are no longer playing the role you once played. You are no longer trapped by old patterns. You are no longer driven by old wounds. You are no longer available for the older, weaker version of your reality. You walk into life with a different energy. And because of that, life meets you differently. And this is just the beginning, because every internal shift you make sets the stage for a completely new external reality. 6. You become unavailable for your old life. When you go through a deep internal shift, something subtle but powerful begins to happen inside you. You stop resonating with the version of life you used to tolerate. The people, habits, conversations, routines, and environments that once felt normal begin to feel heavy, draining, and incompatible with who you are becoming. This is not because you suddenly think you're better than others, but because your frequency has risen to a point where your old life cannot reach you anymore. You begin to outgrow things without effort, the same way a tree outgrows its old roots, not by force, but by evolution. Most people don't understand this process because they think change is something you do, but real transformation is something you become. And when you become different inside, your energy naturally begins to reject anything that does not support your new identity. You notice it in small ways at first. You lose interest in conversations that revolve around negativity, drama, gossip, or small-minded thinking. Activities that once entertained you now feel meaningless. People who once had control over your emotions no longer have the same power. Situations that used to irritate you no longer trigger a reaction. You begin feeling a quiet inner strength, as if your energy knows exactly where it belongs and where it no longer fits. This is what it means to become unavailable for your old life. It is not about shutting people out. It is about no longer shrinking yourself to stay connected to environments that limit your growth. You start choosing your peace over other people's approval. You start choosing your growth over comfort. You start choosing silence over wasting energy on things that don't deserve your attention. You stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop explaining. You stop forcing connections that should have ended long ago. Your vibration rises, and anything that is not aligned naturally falls away. This detachment is not loss, it is alignment. When you elevate, something else powerful happens. Your nervous system stops responding to old emotional patterns. Imagine spending years reacting to certain people, certain words, certain situations, your body storing tension, your mind preparing defenses, your emotions tightening. But now, after solitude and inner work, those same triggers pass through you without sticking. Your body stays calm. Your mind stays clear. Your emotions stay grounded. This is not indifference. This is mastery. You have rewired your internal system in a way that your old life cannot influence anymore. And once you realize how peaceful this new state feels, you become extremely protective of it. You begin guarding your energy the way someone protects something precious, because now you understand how expensive it was to lose it in the first place. You set boundaries without guilt. You walk away without hesitation. You choose yourself without apology. You stop being accessible to people who drain you, disrespect you, or take your kindness for granted. You no longer allow emotional vampires into your space. You no longer give unlimited access to people who do not value your presence. You no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as familiarity. This new version of you begins sending a strong message to the universe. I am no longer available for the life I once settled for. And the universe responds instantly. New opportunities appear not because you chased them, but because your energy is now aligned with them. New people enter your life who speak the same language of growth, peace, and purpose. New ideas come to you that would never have reached you before. And most importantly, your old life cannot pull you back because you have grown beyond its reach. Your detachment becomes your superpower. You stop emotionally bleeding for things that don't give anything back. You stop fighting battles that drain your spirit. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop giving second chances to situations that don't deserve even the first. You become someone who is deeply rooted in their worth, grounded in their identity, and unshakable in their energy. Some people will say you've changed, and they're right. But they don't understand that this change was necessary for your survival, your healing, your elevation. You didn't change to impress anyone. You changed because staying the same was no longer compatible with your spirit. You outgrew your old self, and therefore you outgrew your old life. When you become unavailable for the things that once hurt you, drained you, or limited you, you create room for the life that was always meant for you. And once that shift happens, nothing from your past can reach the new level you've stepped into. You don't have to block anyone. You don't have to announce anything. Your vibration does the separation for you. You rise, and the old life falls away naturally. 7. A new mind always creates a new timeline. The most misunderstood truth about reality is that life does not change because of luck, fate, or external circumstances. Life changes when you change. Your mind is not just a container of thoughts, it is a generator of frequencies. Every belief you hold, every expectation you carry, every emotion you repeat, and every intention you set sends out a vibration into the quantum field. And the quantum field responds not to what you want, but to what you are. This is why people stay stuck, even when they desire better lives. Their desires are new, but their minds are old. Their goals are new, but their identity is old. Their dreams are big, but their vibration is small. When you come back after a period of solitude, healing, awareness, and identity shift, your mind is no longer operating from the frequencies that kept you stuck. You begin thinking thoughts you never had the space to think before. You begin imagining possibilities you previously believed were unrealistic. You begin making decisions from a place of clarity instead of confusion. These new thoughts and behaviors are not random. They are signals that your internal timeline has shifted. And the moment your internal timeline shifts, your external timeline begins rearranging itself to match your new state. A timeline is not a mystical concept. It is simply a chain of events shaped by your energy, decisions, habits, and consciousness. When your consciousness rises, the chain reacts. Certain paths close because you no longer vibrate at the frequency that created them. Certain opportunities appear because your inner world is finally aligned with receiving them. Certain people exit because they belong to your old timeline. Certain people enter because they are aligned with your new frequency. This is why life begins to feel different. When you elevate, you are literally stepping into a different version of reality that your old self did not have access to. Your new mind begins influencing everything. Your thoughts start attracting different outcomes. Your emotional maturity prevents you from sabotaging opportunities. Your new boundaries protect your energy from people who once drained it. Your upgraded identity sends a message to the universe that you are ready for experiences that match your elevated vibration. This is not imagination. It is not fantasy. It is quantum alignment. When the internal changes, the external must follow, because reality is always shaped from the inside out. One of the clearest signs that your timeline has shifted is that things you once had to chase start coming to you naturally. People begin treating you with more respect because your energy demands it. Opportunities begin appearing because your mind can finally see them. Doors open because you are no longer blocking them with fear, doubt, or self-sabotage. You begin flowing instead of forcing. You begin attracting instead of begging. This is the nature of a changed identity. It calls in experiences that match its new level without needing to fight for them. In your old timeline, you were reacting. In your new timeline, you are creating. In your old timeline, you were controlled by your past. In your new timeline, you are driven by your vision. In your old timeline, you repeated cycles. In your new timeline, you break them. In your old timeline, you survived. In your new timeline, you evolve. This shift doesn't require years. Sometimes a single breakthrough in solitude is enough to permanently change the direction of your entire life. A single moment of clarity can rewrite your purpose. A single release of pain can restore your inner power. A single realization can free you from a decade of emotional patterns. This is how quantum change works. It is not slow. It is sudden, sharp, and irreversible once the mind reaches a higher level of awareness. And here is the most profound truth. The people around you might not understand your new timeline, but they will sense it. They might say you seem calmer, different, stronger, more grounded, or harder to manipulate. They might feel intimidated because they can no longer control the version of you they were familiar with. They might feel confused because the energy they once accessed is no longer available. That's because you are no longer living in the timeline where their influence had power over you. Your new mind has placed you on a path they cannot follow unless they, too, choose to level up. As you continue aligning with this elevated identity, life begins rewarding you with experiences that reinforce your transformation. You start meeting people who feel like mirrors of your growth. You start discovering opportunities that match your potential. You begin attracting circumstances that confirm your evolution. The universe responds to your vibration with absolute precision. A new mind doesn't just change how you think, it changes the world you step into. It changes the people you meet, the chances you take, the energy you carry, the paths you notice, and the destiny you create. When the inner world evolves, the outer world cannot remain the same. You shifted your frequency, and in doing so, you shifted your future. You walked away from your old self. And now a new timeline, a better timeline, is unfolding beneath your feet with every step you take. 8. Your silence becomes a magnet for a new reality. There comes a moment in your transformation where you realize that silence is not weakness, withdrawal is not avoidance, and distance is not running away. Silence becomes a form of energetic power. Distance becomes a doorway to clarity. And withdrawal becomes a form of spiritual refinement. Most people fear silence because it forces them to hear their own thoughts, face their own wounds, and confront the identity they built around other people's expectations. But when you embrace silence, true, complete, intentional silence, you activate one of the most powerful forces in the quantum universe, the ability to shift reality without announcing your transformation. Silence recalibrates your energy in a way that noise never can. It separates what is essential from what is unnecessary. It reveals the voices that were influencing you without permission. It makes your intuition louder than the world. When you stop speaking for a while, you begin hearing the things inside you that you ignored for years. You hear the truth behind your desires. You hear the lies fear told you. You hear the parts of you that were neglected. You hear the version of yourself that was waiting to lead you into a better reality. This kind of silence is not empty. It is rich, full, alive, and sacred. As you spend more time in this silent state, you begin noticing something extraordinary. Your energy becomes sharper, clearer, and more magnetic. You start understanding that you don't need to argue, convince, or fight for anything. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to announce your goals. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to justify your growth. Your silence begins doing the work for you. People feel the shift in your presence, even if they don't know what changed. Your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. Your energy communicates truths that your voice never needed to explain. This is the moment where you step into a new phase of quantum creation, the phase where you influence reality through vibration, not conversation. Your silence stops leaking energy into meaningless places. It stops feeding situations that do not deserve your attention. It stops fueling cycles that no longer serve your evolution. Instead, your energy becomes concentrated, focused, and aligned. This is why things begin shifting around you effortlessly. You are no longer scattering your power. You are directing it. And something even more powerful happens during this stage. The universe begins reorganizing itself around your silence. New opportunities start appearing without you chasing them. People who resonate with your new frequency begin entering your life naturally. Situations that match your inner alignment gravitate toward you. Your mind becomes clearer, your heart becomes lighter, and your path becomes easier to walk. You begin to notice synchronicities, signs, and confirmations that you are moving into a new reality, one that was always waiting for you to quiet your world long enough to access it. Your silence also exposes who truly belongs in your new timeline. The people who only valued your energy when they could drain it disappear. The people who needed you to be weak, available, or confused so they could feel comfortable around you pull away. The people who were attached to the old version of you cannot handle this new level of self-awareness. Silence disrupts relationships built on imbalance because they depend on your noise, your emotional reactions, your availability, or your self-doubt to survive. When you take all that away, those relationships fall apart naturally, not out of anger, but out of energetic incompatibility. This stage of silence becomes the period where your true life begins to build itself. You start choosing your inner world over external validation. You start choosing healing over distraction. You start choosing intention over impulse. You start choosing growth over familiarity. You start choosing what aligns with your spirit instead of what feeds your ego. In this space, your identity becomes stronger, your mind becomes clearer, and your spirit becomes grounded in a way that cannot be shaken by anyone or anything. This is why silence is not emptiness. It is rebirth. It is the womb where your new reality is forming. It is the space where the universe rearranges the timeline beneath your feet. It is the quiet bridge that carries you from the person you were into the person you were always meant to become. And once you emerge from this period of silence, you walk into a reality you didn't have the strength or clarity to receive before. You don't just come back different. You come back magnetic, aligned, awakened, untouchable, and deeply connected to a timeline that matches the highest version of who you are becoming. There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the universe gently forces you to step back, slow down, and look at yourself through a different lens. A moment where the familiar begins to feel suffocating, the routines begin to feel empty, and the noise around you begins to drown out the quiet voice of your true self. This moment is not a sign that you're losing your way. It is the signal that you are about to find it. When you withdraw from the world, you are not disappearing. You are reorganizing. You are recalibrating. You are stepping away from the version of life that was built on survival, fear, habit, and unconscious patterns. You are entering a sacred space where the old identity loses its grip and the new identity begins to rise. You are dissolving the emotional weight you carried for years. You are breaking mental loops that kept you stuck. You are tuning your vibration to a frequency that attracts a completely different reality. Every moment of solitude becomes a piece of the new you. Every moment of silence becomes a seed for a new future. Every moment of awareness becomes a doorway to a timeline where you thrive instead of struggle. You begin to understand that the world you experience is nothing more than a reflection of the energy you carry. Change that energy, and the entire reflection changes with it. This is why, when you come back, nothing feels the same anymore. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You return with clearer eyes, a calmer mind, a stronger spirit, and a deeper understanding of who you are and what you deserve. You return with boundaries you never had the courage to set. You return with intentions you never had the clarity to hold. You return with confidence that does not need validation. You return with a presence that speaks before you do. People will notice, not because you tell them, but because they feel it. Your silence carries weight. Your energy carries direction. Your presence carries stability. You no longer entertain chaos. You no longer absorb negativity. You no longer participate in cycles that once drained your life force. The world around you senses your evolution, and it adjusts to match your frequency. The wrong people fall away. The right people arrive. Opportunities unfold. Paths open. And life begins to move in harmony with the identity you rebuilt in the quiet. You didn't change because life forced you. You changed because you finally chose yourself. You chose your peace. You chose your alignment. You chose your healing. You chose the version of you that was buried beneath layers of noise, expectation, and survival mode. You shed the old identity one decision at a time, one realization at a time, one silence at a time. And now you return not as the person you used to be, but as the person you were always meant to become. A person with a new mind. A person with a new vibration. A person with a new level of spiritual clarity. A person with a new timeline unfolding beneath their feet. The world will not understand your transformation, but it will adjust to it, because reality always bends for the mind that has awakened to its own power. You don't need to announce anything. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to force anything. Just continue elevating, choosing, aligning, and growing. The universe will meet you exactly where your new energy takes you. Come back different, and the world will never look the same again.